Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of Fireside Chat with the Johnstons. I'm Danielle Johnston, your host for today's episode. So guys, if you are like me, we are a couple weeks past our tryouts now. And over the weekend that I did tryouts, I had several gym owners who had reached out to me who were also in the process of chaos. No, I mean tryouts. So if you went through that and you have experienced a little bit of like uncertainty and feeling a little bit of chaos in the post-tryout weeks, you are not alone. And so today we're going to talk about how to drama-proof your program this season. So guys, if you have never had a whole bunch of drama happen in your gym before, whether it's social media drama where, Susie dropped Sarah and so Sarah's mom is mad and posting it on Facebook.
What? How dare you?
That's happened to us before. Or a coach quit and they're like spilling the tea everywhere into, the Facebook universe or Twitter or whatever it is where you live. That could have happened. The moms could just be gabbing in the lobby and talking kind of negatively or talking trash on your program. If you've never experienced any of those, then you're probably a coach or a parent. You're probably not a gym owner. Because all gym owners will experience this at one point in their careers. And my hope for you is that some of the tips that I give you today and some of the things that we talk through will help minimize that for your program. Because boy, have I been there. And I definitely don't want you guys to have to experience that. Because as much as we say, this is business, it is not personal, it is very hard to separate someone's dissatisfaction with your gym from the dissatisfaction with you as an owner or take it personally. Okay, so let me tell you about 2014.
Flashback.
It was quite the year for Twister Sports, which is my gym located in the middle of Missouri in a small town called Warrensburg. And I was in the second year of owning my program, and I had about 35 cheerleaders come with me over from the community center where I was coaching competitive and recreational cheerleading. It was actually kind of wild. They had given us an elementary school gym floor and one panel mat, and we were running 3 teams at the same time there. Our tinies would have to mark their roles. Usually they got the panel mat because you actually never knew when tinies were going to roll and when they were going to mark it. And then we had youth teams and we had to have a whole bunch of spotters because we didn't even have mats. And actually, I have no idea what our formations looked like because we just kind of did our best. And it was this basketball court that we were practicing on. We didn't have mats at the time, but we eventually figured out that we needed them. Anyway, we decided to open our gym and a whole bunch of these parents came over. You would think that it was the most amazing thing for these people because we went from this teeny tiny elementary school gym with me and 2 other coaches and barely any athletes, separated literally 35 kids between 3 teams and wide variety of skills on each team and inconsistent practices because if there was a volleyball game, we got kicked out of the gym and moved to this other facility. You would have thought that these people would be over the moon.
Not this time. It never happened. It's false.
But it didn't last long. In fact, I will say it probably lasted a couple of weeks. And then we started to get into feeling a whole lot more comfortable at Twisters. And Twisters sort of became a second home, which in theory was really wonderful. In reality, it made people far too comfortable. And it made them actually feel like they had an ownership or a responsibility. You couldn't have opened this without me. Fast forward just a couple of months in 2014, and we actually had a huge group of parents who met and essentially started a revolt and decided that they were done. Things were going to have to change or they were going to have to go to a different gym.
Is that a threat?
Several of them ended up going to a different gym, And a couple of the ones who stayed, but were incredibly unhappy and wanted to kind of make sure everybody knew it. Now, so far, I have not told you all the mistakes that I made along the way. I definitely made huge mistakes in the process of that. No time within that was I super transparent about here's why we can't get a full floor, even though we went, from there to here. Here's why we have to practice at this time, and I had to move your practice time. Here's why you now have to pay a bigger tuition, because they were literally paying $40 a month for All-Star cheerleading, then their competition fees on top of that. And it just wasn't feasible. I couldn't have covered rent with that, let alone being able to cover, staffing and insurance and utilities and all of that. I had a whole bunch of parents who were really upset, but I didn't handle it correctly right from the beginning. And it's not that I was safeguarding information, I just hadn't really put myself in their shoes. I was so focused on opening a gym that I wasn't really listening to the questions that were being asked or the statements that were being made and addressing those and focusing on that.
I was distracted.
So maybe you've been in a situation like that. The first mistake that I made was, number one, a lack of transparency and communication. Though I thought I was communicating things effectively, I was communicating things like, be at the event venue at this time, we compete at this time, right? And I thought that was clear enough. But when it came down to why did our tuition jump from $40 to $80, I wasn't empathetic to that. I wasn't understanding of the fact that someone who has regularly budgeted in 40 probably hasn't budgeted in 80. And guess what? That's going to have to jump next year, because that was the biggest jump we thought we could make, but still wasn't enough to cover the bills. The second part of that was the parents had an unrealistic expectation. And why? Because I didn't manage their expectations from the beginning. So had I had a parent meeting and said, moving into this new facility, here's what you can expect. You can expect that we're going to get a whole bunch new athletes. We're going to have a variety of teams. However, you may not get a full floor. In fact, we may not even have a full floor. We had 6 panels in one part of the gym on dead mat, and we had another 6.5 in the back. Yes, I had to cut half of a flexi roll, and it broke my heart the same way it broke that flexi roll, because at the time I bought these brand new flexi rolls just so I could slice one in half. If you've ever been there, you're feeling it in your heart right now. I had not set any expectations whatsoever. I thought people were going to be just as excited as me, but I also had expected them to have just as much grace as I was hoping to receive. And that wasn't really the case. I think people walked in, and I'm not sure if it's because of their previous experience or that I seemed confident, I guess, in that role, but a whole bunch of parents really thought I knew more than I did know at the time.
Damn it! Rookie mistake!
Their expectation was never set properly in the first place. And so it was sort of like, if you can dream it, you can become it. If you can dream it for your child, that's what Danielle is going to take you to. And that just wasn't the case. On top of all that, I had never really had a true staff before. So as we were growing, I wasn't coaching all of the teams anymore. In fact, I wasn't in this teeny tiny gym where I could hear how was Jackie coaching them, how was Jessica coaching. I couldn't see and manage and speak to every parent at the end of the practice anymore. In fact, we were spread out a little more. We were on different days, and I might be coaching a team while someone else is coaching a team. I didn't have that level of expectation set for my coaches either. So they didn't know how to communicate with parents, how to readjust their routines, how to take a flyer out of the air if something wasn't working, or, an athlete was no longer throwing a back handspring. They didn't know how to do those things in a way that didn't create drama in itself. So if you've opened a gym, and I'm not even going to say opened from scratch, because whether you've opened a gym or you've taken over a gym that was already existing, you know that there is so much emotion and effort and heart put into that, whether it's the hiring and training of the staff or the marketing or just the day-to-day operations. Like so much of your effort goes into it and so much sacrifice away from your family, away from your full-time job if you have one. Like I was using vacation days to work on the gym rather than go on vacation with my family. And what it created was like a hostility, I guess, in me. It created this resent in me that when parents were upset with something, I was like, hold on a minute. I literally took a week off of work to take your child to competitions and then work on things at the gym, or I took a week off work for choreography, and that wasn't appreciated. And so what did it create from me? An emotional response. So the emotional responses often looked like somebody maybe asking a question, or I could hear them talking in the lobby. And instead of like keeping my cool and like approaching them at, the right time and with the right words and with the right compassion and empathy, it was more like a snake, like I was snapping. And, the snide comments and stuff like that came out of a place of passion and sacrifice, but they didn't come out as passionate and sacrificial. They came out as snarky and sarcastic because I was responding to things emotionally rather than calmly. And you might be far more emotionally intelligent than me, and maybe this is never the issue for you, but I can tell you a lot of gym owners feel this business with passion. The ones I talked to this past weekend, they were so afraid of parents being upset because they were trying to place the athletes where they actually thought they belonged. 2 gym owners in particular that I talked to, opposite ends of the country, were literally concerned that like this kid is going to be devastated and this parent is going to be so upset that they're going to quit and leave my gym after so many years of being at our gym because she doesn't have a handspring or she has a froggy handspring and they are dead set on making level 2. And I know if I put them on level 2, I'm taking that away from another kid who does have the skills to compete. These gym owners were faced with these like difficult and challenging circumstances, and nobody was saying like, bye kids, sorry you don't have the skills. In fact, they were like hurting because they knew that they were about to hurt somebody, but they had to make the right decision for the rest of the team and the rest of the program. Thankfully, they were calm, mostly calm, but at least they were calm enough to like reach out and say, here's my situation, can I get some advice on how to handle this? Because it's emotionally taxing right now. A lot of times I get to hear the emotional response, like, well, here's what she said and here's what I think I'm going to say. And I get to sit back and say, okay, I don't know these people, so I can take the emotion out of it and I can help you with a factual, kind, compassionate response because I can usually understand where the parent is coming from and where the gym owner is coming from. And I can help kind of bridge that gap. Now, the parent never sees that, but as a business coach, that is something that we do for our academy clients. And I think it creates 2 things. I think it creates a super professional response. And, I read that as you're building your emotional intelligence, like you have to rewire your brain. You have to take those like neuropaths and you have to reset them. And they have to be continuously like reset and redirected to create that new map and that new path in your brain. And so as I help gym owners to like reset that path, to think more compassionately and with empathy, they're developing the skills themselves.
As we continue, Captain, they are virtually learning the concept of communication.
A few of my clients have this really funny, it's sort of sacrilegious, so I'm not like recommending it, but it cracks me up when they say it. They're like, hey, I have like a WWDD moment, like a what would Danielle do kind of moment. And a lot of times they'll say, so here's my question and here's what I think you're going to tell me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're creating those neural pathways because, and like Jeff Benson, correct me if like my sciences doesn't make sense or I'm using the wrong terminology, but like you guys get it. I'm like, this is so awesome that these people are learning how to have that compassion and that empathy and not give a triggered emotional response, because I didn't have that back then. And I've got to tell you, here's what it led to. Me not having that kind of emotional intelligence and that kind of ability to like reach out to a mentor and say, here's what I want to say, what do you think? And get that feedback and have somebody with less emotion give me the right answer. Not having that led to about 8 1-star reviews, which, hi guys, we're in season 14. And despite the other 87 or 100 whatever reviews, like, gosh, if you get hit on Google, it's really hard to fix it. And it's taken 14 years to get back up to a 4.7.
It's been 84 years.
But then also a whole bunch of other people who saw this drama happen, and they were my rec kids, and they saw it happen in the lobby, and they're like, hold on, I don't think I want to be part of something like this. So how many kids missed out on cheer altogether because they saw these snappy, snarky moments that I had and that other parents had as well? So today I feel like I have learned, not all the time, but a lot of the time, how to have a better emotional response to things. And I realized that sometimes that means, one, I do better with text. And two, it means that I have to take a pause or take a breath. You know, I had an athlete who's been with us for 10 years, and we weren't going to have the level that she wanted and that I had thought we were going to have. And I had texted mom and just said, hey, can you guys think about this over the weekend, take some time and talk about it and decide what you think you'd like to do about next season. And within about 15 or 20 minutes, I had a response back that just said, hey, we'll pass on next season. And honestly, like, it did hurt. Like, it was hurtful to me because that athlete had been with us for so long. Like, I had so many memories since she was a tiny all the way up through senior. And to just get a response that was like, we'll pass, was kind of hurtful.
Emotional damage.
Old Danielle, 2014 Danielle, probably would have given a snarky response. 2025 Danielle sat back a little bit and thought, okay, that hurts me, but that's a me problem. That's not a problem that this other person has. Like, whether they should have replied that way or not is sort of irrelevant. It's a me problem because I have to think about, like, maybe she was in the middle of something else and just wanted to make sure that I knew quickly so that I could move forward with developing teams. You know, maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe they meant, oh man, we'll pass. And I just read into it wrong. Whatever that was, I could have given this response that was like, wow, can't believe you're doing that over text. But these days, 2025 Danielle would never do that. These days, I would sit back and I would be able to have a little bit more compassion and empathy and just kind of that thought of like, I don't know what's going on in your life and in your day today, and I can give a better response like, hey, totally understand, thanks. And later on, that parent did reach out and she's like, hey, I hope you're not upset with us, blah, blah, blah. Maybe she just needed time to process it also. I mean, it's been a really long time. So I just encourage you, gym owners, and even the coaches who might be listening to this, you know, take a pause. Don't give that emotional response, because the emotional response that you give back fuels the fire for the parent drama. It shows parents that you are allowing certain behaviors because you are the instigator of the behaviors. You're the one who's doing the behavior, so of course you're going to accept it. But there's an awful lot of people, a lot of, you know, people, especially I would say in our 20s, I say our 20s, like I'm still in my 20s, but I love that. A lot of people in our 20s who probably feel like, you know what, you're going to snap at me, I'm going to snap right back because you deserve it. And realistically, one, that's not professional. Two, it's not compassionate. And three, you kind of have no idea where somebody else might be coming from. So that kind of emotional response absolutely fuels the wrong kind of fire. I once had a roommate, and I was like super not emotionally intelligent at 19, but I had a roommate who she and I always like really got into it because she was a slob. But she made the comment one day because I just remember her coming home and I was like on her about doing her dishes and like cleaning up after herself. I remember her coming home and saying, you have no idea how somebody else's day was. Like, you really need to slow down a little bit as you're giving orders or whatever. And I remembered that. And I don't think I've ever forgotten that. Now, does that make me perfect 100% of the time? No, like really far from perfect, actually. But every time I mess up, I like remember that she said that and I remember that advice. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You have no idea what somebody else's life is like, and to snap back fuels the wrong kind of fire. So social media policies is number 2. Let's talk about those for just a minute. There are a lot of gyms and a lot of gym owners that I'll see say, hey, can anybody put their social media policy for staff and for athletes out into the group because they want to create this social media policy for their own gym. So there's a couple of problems with this. And like caveat, I am not an attorney, but I've seen every episode of Suits, not the new one because it's not good, but the old episodes. Social media, like controlling someone else's social media or having them sign something that says you can or cannot post this or that, like whether it's legal or not, I'm not a fan of it. I would rather somebody have this authentic social media that is honest. And now, do I think that people overshare on social media? 1000%. Yes, they do. But I also, if somebody is going to go out there and say something negative on social media, I don't want them to not do it because they had to sign some policy in my gym. Because you know what you're going to get? You're going to get somebody who actually is even worse on social media because you are now restricting their First Amendment rights. So I'll let the attorneys in the group, those gym owners who are also attorneys, and I know 2 of you, so there's got to be more. I will let you guys email me with your thoughts on that, but I just don't believe that that's how we should be, conducting business. To try to control the social media of our customers is not, in my opinion, the right way to minimize drama. There will inevitably be drama in one way or another. It's almost like lighting a firework underneath like a tin can. Like the can is going to go somewhere. Something is going to happen. It's not going to confine the firework all by itself. So like these parents are wanting to explode, and simply putting a tin can over it is not going to stop it. It's just going to make it come out in some other way. Whether you do that with staff or not is kind of like I've kind of heard the legal side of it both ways, and we can get into that some other time. But ultimately, I don't have any social media policies in my gym. I have had athletes at team events flip the middle finger to the camera. I have approached those parents. I'm not demanding anything. I'm not saying she's off the team. I'm not saying any of those things, but I've said, this is not the culture that I would like to portray at our gym. I understand she's not in uniform, but we do have a lot of younger athletes looking up to her, and that was a team event. Would you mind just taking down that picture? So know that as we get into social media and, we go even farther down the road of like free speech in whatever way and shape and form that looks like, be very cautious about restricting someone's speech. It's like, what do they say? You can catch more bees with honey than vinegar.
They say you catch more flies with honey.
Figure out how to keep these people happy and make them happy. And I'm going to tell you, 99% of people are going to be happy if you are communicating effectively and managing their expectations. And I'll give you a couple of tips in a minute here for how to best do that. So the lobby is kind of a big one where a lot of times I will hear owners say, there's a lot of negative conversations that are occurring in the lobby. And I'm sure they happen at my gym, and I don't hear a lot about them, but I will also tell you, I really don't think they happen a ton, because I used to hear about them 6 or 7 years ago, way more. And you're like, hold on, Danielle, Next Gen has been around way longer than 6 or 7. Yeah, it has. But you're going to go through a cycle of like, as your gym grows, you're going to get people, you're going to have to teach them the culture in your gym. Some of them will be weeded out. Some of them will weed themselves out. And then you'll have to refill the gym and refill those positions of the people who weeded themselves out or were weeded out. And it's going to be this cycle every time you grow. Now, over time, you'll get so many great people in your gym that somebody who comes in and is negative early on is probably going to feel a little bit out of place. But the way that I keep those things positive is that we are always talking to parents in the lobby. I am never pulling a flyer from a position without like a work plan of like, hey, she's not currently hitting these things. Her flexibility isn't increasing, and it really needs to increase in order for her to hit that stunt. Here's her homework over the next couple of weeks, and I need you to check in every 2 weeks. You might be saying like, wow, that would take way too long to do something like that, and you've got competitions in there and whatnot. Yeah, you're right. And does my gym like win everything all the time? No, definitely not. So there's a little bit of like winning is sacrificed for doing what I consider to be the right thing for my gym.
Your recommendation comes at a price.
Know that like if all I cared about was winning anytime a flyer wasn't hitting something, I'd pull them out of the air and put someone in there who did, right? If all I cared about was winning, the kid who, can throw 2 back handsprings, but she gets really nervous that the person behind her is too close when it comes to the third, like I would just get tired of it and I would pull her out and put somebody in there who was fearless. Like any of us can do that, but is it going to create the right culture in your gym if you do that? Or can you coach athletes through these difficult things, work with them until either they kind of say, hey, I'd like to be taken out of this pass right now because I understand what it is doing to my team, or I want to keep working on this. I think I can get it. So you have to think about what kind of communication and transparency you're giving both with the athletes and the parents. Is that conversation happening privately with parents, or is it happening publicly in the lobby? 99% of the time, our conversations with parents are held privately. I may go to a parent and just say, hey, do you have a couple minutes? I want to just chat about, your child. There may be moments where I'm like, hey, she says her ankle is really hurting today. I'm going to cut her a little bit of slack. But if we do continue to see this, we'll probably want to get it checked out. That's probably a statement I would say in front of a group of parents. I would not say something like, hey, she's not pulling her body positions correctly, she doesn't look more flexible, etc. It's important that you are setting the expectation on social media, and I don't just mean your own gym's social media. So for me, it would be pretty rare that I post something negative on social media because I'm not looking for negativity. Like people who post negative things on social media are just begging for more negativity to be put on top of that, right? Like, I'm upset this business did blah, blah, blah. Like, to be honest, Justin went to, he was pretty upset today, both with the people doing the inspection on the vehicle and with the DMV. Let's say he goes and posts that on social media. Is he going to get people who are defending the DMV? Maybe, but 99% of the people are going to be also complaining about it. So like that negativity is just going to compound with the negative comments. And so when parents post something negative like that, they have to know what's coming next. So as a gym owner, be the most positive person in the room, be the most positive person on social media. The majority of my social media is shares of funny things and photos of my kids. Remember that you need to set the example as the gym owner, as the coach, as the director, when it comes to that positivity and diminishing drama. Backhanded comments or, under the breath kind of comments about like, well, today really sucked, or like, wish people understood, blah, blah, blah. I see those on gym owners' posts all the time, and I'm like, ugh, like I wouldn't post anything like that because I would feel pretty sad if a parent got home and posted something like that also. I feel like I did a really good job this year of managing expectations. If we knew they wanted to be placed on a particular level and they were not making that level, I feel like we did a pretty good job this year at managing those expectations. There was one situation that I missed, and it was, where I communicated with the dad, and mom and dad are divorced. So the child knew about it, the dad knew about it. I had not separately communicated with the mom. And the tryout results came out, and the athlete already knew. I guess she was in really good spirits about it. She knew where she was going to place. And the mom went and posted, like, I'm so glad my daughter is as strong as she is. And I just thought, like, what exactly are you looking for out of a post like that? Because if a gym owner goes and posts something like that, I'm telling you right now, you're begging for the wrong people to comment on it. And so if we don't want parents to behave that way in our gym, we absolutely have to set the example. It's important that you're building a drama-resistant culture. Set the tone, be professional, be kind, be empathetic, be compassionate, listen more than you speak. That is literally the one that gets me the most. I tend to give the why for everything. In fact, my 15-year-old caught me yesterday, and I can't remember what it was. I told her, like, no, you need to, she had like 4 or 5 things she needed to do. She had to like clean her room, do her laundry, finish her finals project for high school, and pack for our trip. And we didn't leave until the day after the next. So like the day after tomorrow, essentially. And all the other ones needed to be done that night because when she got up to go to school the next morning, they had to be done. And by the way, if you have a teenager, like I have a rule, by Sunday night, all the laundry is done, your room is clean, I'm checking it. It just took me like 4 kids to learn that. Anyway, I asked her after like 7 hours of being home and doing very little. I was like, what have you been doing all day? And she's like, packing. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me right now. Like, you should have been doing all these other things because they're due tonight. She goes, okay, I'll switch to those. And I guess the why inside of me just needed to like beat it to death. So anyway, I was like, you have all night tomorrow night that you could be packing. Like, you have to get the laundry done tonight so that you have laundry to even pack and, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, you just gave me the why. Like, I already understand. I just told you I would do it. So my fault is that I give the why a little bit too much. Most people don't give the why enough. And I think it's because I've trained those neural pathways in my brain to give the why, because I never got the why when I was military. I was just expected to do something. So when I opened a business, I never gave the why. I just expected people to do it because I said so. And it wasn't really a good path as an employer. And it wasn't a good path as a gym owner, because not giving the why ruined some relationships in the gym, and it ruined some of those employer-employee relationships, and it ruined some of those gym owner-customer relationships. There are going to be a couple of times in the gym that you need to cut ties with people. I'm not going to get into that on this episode because I do think, actually I've written like a 20-page blog about it before. There's just so many circumstances that could be impacted by it. But all I can tell you is this: when you are in a situation where you want to cut ties with somebody, look inside first. I was talking to a gym owner today, and she was telling me about some of the frustrations that she's having right now, both with staff and with customers when it comes to tryouts. She had a staff member who quit, and she said, I'm so far down the path of looking at myself and what I could have done better that sometimes I forget, like, people also make mistakes. And so look inside yourself. What could you do? What could you fix? What could you make better on the End of Drama? Are you, as a gym owner, accountable to the things you're posting on social media and the things you're saying and the level of communication that you're providing to your own customers? If you can say yes to all those things, then look at the bigger picture, and maybe you've got to start attracting different types of customers. Guys, if you listen to this episode and you were thinking like, man, I've never dealt with any of that before, then you're a unicorn. But if you listen to it and some of it resonated with you because you have experienced the drama in your gym, you are not alone in that, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. You may see cycles of it over time, but you as a gym owner will get better at handling it. Those neural pathways will start to develop within your brain. And I also recommend finding someone like a mentor. The fact that it was tryout weekend for me, but I was able to do voice notes back and forth with 3 different clients in the Next Gen Academy was so valuable, because I was able to help them like talk out, okay, where should your teams be placed? You have this many of this level, this many of this level, and you've got a couple of kids that you're not sure. Let's talk about them. We were able to talk through those situations of like, mom's going to be really mad if she gets placed here, but this is where I believe she needs to be. I think it's so valuable to have somebody that you can talk through those things with. So if you've listened to this and you're thinking, man, that would be nice, head over to nextgenowners.com, click the button that says book a call, chat with somebody on our staff so that you can see if the Next Gen Academy might be a good fit for you. You never know if it's a good fit until you check it out. Additionally, we have the Cheer Gym Owners group on Facebook for gym owners only. And we have All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners on Facebook for those owners who also coach and those coaches. And lastly, we have June 20th through 22nd in Dallas, Texas, the summer conference for Next Gen. And there are so many great topics. One that I was just looking at the other day because I'm excited to teach it is 5 things I would never delegate as an owner. So that is just one example of some of the classes we'll be teaching. We've got some other great stuff on websites. We've got Corey Rickett, Kat Haley, Jason Larkins, Patrick Davison, who's my tumbling director. He's pretty awesome. And a whole bunch of other great people from the Next Gen staff who are going to be speaking there. It is the #1 conference in All-Star Cheer. And on top of that, it's at an amazing venue and we have payment plans available. So to check that out, head over to ngconferences.com. All right, you guys. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Fireside Chat. And with that, I look forward to seeing you guys next week.